hosting this great event and the presentation of the PPI report about the app economy, especially because if you all have the report, it's focused also in Mexico. So we all know that the new trends and the importance of the knowledge economy and where the Mexico is going right now is a challenge that we all need to face here at Startup Mexico. We believe in that that we are in that inflection point of the development of the national economy from a manufacturing economy to a knowledge economy. And well, we are really glad that all of you are here sharing that vision and that understanding of the challenges that we have as a country, as a society, and as leaders and actors of the knowledge economy. I want to welcome you all to Startup Mexico. I don't want to take so much explaining what we do here. We're just a super hub for entrepreneurs and innovations. We work with big companies, established companies. Also, we develop startups. As you can see, it's an open space. We have 2 other campuses in the country. So whenever you want to approach the entrepreneurial ecosystem, just come to Startup Mexico, take a seat in one of our co-work places, and just let me know. But like I already told you, I don't want to take a lot of time. Just want to say welcome to the hub. Thank you to PPI for choosing Startup Mexico as your ally in the whole event. And I just want to introduce the next speaker. Yeah, that it's going to be Javier Alard. You know, he's the president of AMITI, the Mexican Association for Tecnologías de la Información here in Mexico. So you can take a seat, you can talk here, and welcome everybody. Good morning.
Gracias, muchas gracias. Para hablarles de las tecnologías de información y en particular de la economía de las aplicaciones que estamos dedicadas. Efectivamente, vengo de AMITI, soy el director general. AMITI es la Asociación Mexicana de la Industria de Tecnologías de Información, que representamos empresas tanto multinacionales, grandotas, como Apple, en primer lugar, como empresas de infraestructura, de servicios, de software, lo mismo que empresas mexicanas, desde Telmex, un brazo de tecnología que es HITS, hasta empresas de 2 o 3 empleados desarrolladores, cubriendo todos los sectores. En México, al igual que en el resto del mundo, estamos viviendo una transformación importante hacia esto que hemos llamado la economía digital. Pasamos por la sociedad de la información y el conocimiento y ahora estamos dirigiéndonos de lleno a la parte de la economía digital. ¿Qué es la sociedad de la información y el conocimiento? Si hacemos un parangón con la industria, vemos que en la industria hay 3 etapas para generar riqueza, ¿no? Por ejemplo, en la industria automotriz genera riqueza el que produce o el que tiene acceso a la materia prima. Posteriormente genera riqueza el que fabrica producto terminado con esa materia prima y en tercer lugar el que la distribuye o que comercializa. El día de hoy, y gracias al internet, a la computación, al software, la economía está basada en las posibilidades de tener acceso al conocimiento, a la información. Pero esta información no nos sirve de mucho. Esta información no nos sirve de mucho si no tenemos la capacidad de estructurarla y explotarla. Es lo que llamamos la sociedad de la información. ¿Y en dónde entran las tecnologías de información? Las tecnologías de información son lo que utilizamos la fábrica o la manufactura para convertir esa información en conocimiento, porque podemos tener un mundo de datos que si no están organizados, estructurados, procesos para explotarlos no nos sirven de nada. Las tecnologías de información lo que nos permite convertir esa información en conocimiento, y ese conocimiento, cuando le aplicamos técnicas de innovación, lo convertimos en competitividad o en productividad. Así es que la sociedad, la información y el conocimiento es lo que le da a las personas, a las organizaciones, a los países, la posibilidad de ser competitivos a través de la explotación de esas toneladas y toneladas de información que tenemos al alcance de un teléfono. Y eso es la importancia que tiene en la economía actual las tecnologías de información. En una economía como la nuestra, en donde probablemente el 90% de las empresas son pymes, pequeñas y medianas, en México hay 5 millones de empresas registradas en el Seguro Social, que operan, que pagan impuestos. De esas el 90% son pymes. Y una cifra alarmante es que de esas 4,5 millones de empresas, probablemente el 70%, 3 millones, no están utilizando tecnologías de información en procesos productivos. Son empresas que sí tienen una computadora, pero que probablemente la están utilizando para el mail, o están utilizando una hoja de cálculo, o un Word, o un PowerPoint, pero que no están directamente relacionadas con procesos productivos de manufactura, de manejo de inventarios, de administración, de inteligencia de negocios, de relacionamiento con clientes, ¿no? Y esto es lo que no nos permite desarrollar de una manera agresiva la competitividad del país. En algunas ocasiones he mencionado que estas 3 millones o 3,5 millones de empresas que no están utilizando tecnologías de información, entendiendo que son computadoras o dispositivos móviles, o acceso al internet, o programas de software, pues difícilmente pueden ser competitivas en un mundo abierto como el que estamos viviendo hoy. Había yo comentado en alguna ocasión que si llegara algún mecenas tipo Bill Gates y nos regala 1 millón de computadoras, lo más probable es que nos meta en un problema de instalar, de mantener, de instalar, de mantener, de actualizar el software, de educar a la gente, ¿no? Sin embargo, la gran mayoría de las personas que operan estas pequeñas y medianas empresas tienen acceso a las aplicaciones móviles. ¿Por qué? Porque tienen un teléfono inteligente. En México hay cifras de nuestros amigos de AMIPSI, que está aquí Julio César, por ahí de los 40 millones de aparatos inteligentes entre teléfonos y laptops, etcétera. Son 40 millones de gentes que pueden bajar aplicaciones, que pueden bajar programas, no solamente para los jueguitos, que empezaron bajando el Angry Birds y después aplicaciones de productividad personal, y que es muy fácil que esas personas, a cambio de instalar en un punto de venta, un pequeño comercio, una computadora con acceso a internet, es mucho más fácil bajar una aplicación que ya saben cómo hacerlo, independientemente del sistema, saben cómo hacerlo, y que puedan usar esas aplicaciones que estamos viendo cada día más en los procesos productivos. Y es por esta razón que el uso de las aplicaciones móviles está tomando tal importancia, porque es la manera más rápida, más eficiente y más efectiva de subir al mundo de las tecnologías de información a todas estas pequeñas y medianas empresas, muchas dependencias del gobierno, escuelas, universidades, el sector académico, profesionistas independientes, etcétera. Es mucho más sencillo hacerlo a través de aplicaciones móviles que pretender que toda esta gente se pueda subir al mundo de la tecnología a través de los métodos tradicionales de computadora, acceso a internet y software, que finalmente van a llegar allá, pero la entrada fácil es las aplicaciones. En Amiti nos hemos dedicado los últimos 2 o 3 años a desarrollar el ecosistema de las aplicaciones móviles. Tenemos un programa que se llama Aplícate, en donde precisamente lo que queremos es fomentar el desarrollo y el crecimiento del ecosistema de las aplicaciones, no que desarrollen jueguitos, sino que desarrollen aplicaciones productivas relacionadas con los procesos de negocio de las empresas, ¿no? Y esto, pues al final de cuentas, tiene que dar mucho resultado. Imaginen ustedes que una empresa, voy a poner un ejemplo que todos conocemos, Bimbo, que pueda desarrollar su plataforma y su aplicación, en la cual está en contacto con 250,000 o 300,000 puntos de venta que tiene, en donde les está enviando información de los productos, cambios de precio, toma de pedidos, en donde llega el camioncito de Bimbo y le pagan con dinero móvil y se acaban los asaltos, ¿no? Y eso es válido pues, para muchas de estas cadenas productivas por ejemplo, una fábrica de automóviles en donde puede enlazar toda la cadena de proveeduría, de proveedores de autopartes relacionados con su proceso de manufactura a través de aplicaciones móviles del teléfono, del iPad o de tabletas, ¿no? Y esto nos da mucha productividad. Esto es lo que reviste la importancia de las aplicaciones, explotando el uso del Internet, del software. Las aplicaciones móviles son muy económicas. Hay cantidad de aplicaciones, no necesariamente de jueguitos, sino aplicaciones ya productivas para un punto de venta, para hacer factura electrónica, para pagos, en donde el teléfono celular hay dispositivos para el lector de códigos para tomar pagos con el teléfono. Hay muchísimas cosas que nos pueden permitir y facilitar el desarrollo de la competitividad del país basado en la adopción de tecnología vía aplicaciones móviles. Esta es la importancia que revisten las aplicaciones móviles en un ambiente como el nuestro, un ambiente que es similar en cualquier país de Latinoamérica o de cualquier país en desarrollo de alguna otra parte del mundo, y es a lo que le estamos apostando. Así es que, bueno, le agradecemos mucho a PPI el habernos permitido comentar con ustedes brevemente, y no he visto el reporte, me parece que va a ser muy interesante, justo en combinación con lo que producen nuestros colegas de AMIPSI, del mundo de la Internet. Por ahí es por donde nos tenemos que ir. Muchas gracias por su atención y que tengan buenos días, que sea muy productivo el evento del día de hoy. Buenos días.
Thanks to Javier. He's also a good friend from Startup Mexico. We have held a couple of mobile Mondays events from Amity here. And sure, if you are interested, they do this every first Monday of the month, right? So make sure to go to one of those Mobile Mondays events. To continue the program, the schedule of the event, I'd like to invite let me check, Nadim Matuk from Coconut Studio to share your experience with the audience about the whole app economy.
Perfecto. Bueno, muchas gracias en español. Bueno, thanks Michael, Michelle, and Cody for the invitation. I'm co-founder of Coconut Studio. They just suggest me to briefly introduce about our story and our journey until today. We start this idea of generating entertainment products from about 5 years ago, and it all started with this idea to quitting our jobs with no plans or anything. It was just a briefly idea, and we love games. I don't know how it's. We love games, so we started to try to understand a little bit the consumers. Our background was from design, and we understand that we needed to develop products for real people, and we need to understand them first in order to make some products that they actually want to use them. So this was our first idea. This is strange. Let me try this. Well, our first game was describing the story of Juan Escutia. You know, this is a nice layout of El Castillo de Chapultepec, and it's Juan Escutia dropping apart. It's a Mexican tradition. So our interpretation of Juan Escutia was Sky Hero. So it was a local concept for a global market. And this is part of our story. If we have Zelda or Mega Man or Mario Bros, why we shouldn't have our Juan Escutia in 12 bits? So according to us, it will only take 2 weeks to develop this game. And this was our first iterations after these 2 weeks. And of course, could you help me to scroll faster? This was supposed to be at Keynote, but it's in PDF. So, um, well, it wasn't developed in 2 weeks, and with 2,500 pesos, which was our estimated budget, it was way more. It was 48 weeks and all our savings. We spent all our money to travel to San Francisco to game developers conference and to try to speak with different publishers in order to have our own game published and have more possibilities to be a worldwide product. So we managed to publish our game with Chilingo. Sorry, I don't understand this clicker. And what is different about Sky Hero, because you can imagine, right now the stores are really saturated. And before there, I remember that as an indie developers, Apple was releasing the iPhone 4, and just in less than 6 months, they released like 3 new devices, and we need them to develop for all the devices and support them. So that was the help that we have with our publisher. And the difference about Sky Hero was that we integrate this weather integration system. So if it started to rain in Mexico City, you will play in a rainy environment. Or if you go to Alaska and it starts snowing, you will play in a snow environment. Of course, that didn't help us a lot to acquire users, but at least it helped us to reach Chilingo and make some lobbying with them in order to publish the game. So that was our first story. I don't know what, don't worry, I will just speak. So after that, we were just a group of 3 people and 2 collaborators, and we managed to earn some money from that. And what's next? What is the next thing about mobile development? If we wanted to build a formal company that provide real jobs with real benefits and generate an economy here in our country to generate these opportunities, we need to take this development serious. So we started to develop and to gather local people that were just committed to learn and to try new things. I can tell you that most of our best programmers they didn't finish high school. And I'm not supporting but I think curiosity and motivation is the skill set that you need to have in this industry. Because and it's not only on the gaming industry, I think in mobility. The market is already saturated, and the opportunities to be the next big unicorn, how many startups from here, they won't last more than a year. And it's part of this strength, and it's part of this support that you need from your team members. So we understand that we need to invest in our corporation and to create this ambience. So what happened next is that we started to commercialize our services and do part work for hire and do part our own development. And in the end, we managed to have right now 43 developers in our company. It's funny because the work for hire, pretty much 80% of the contracts we get, it's outside Mexico, no inside Mexico. And now the companies are starting to realize that it's already too late to be in mobile devices. We have great local success and stories about local companies that are handling and are understanding mobility and needs. You can see from grocery stores to entertainment business companies how they are learning how to monetize and get this new market. Before mobility, gaming industry was for just hardcore gamers. And now you can see your mom, 58 years old, playing Candy Crush. Or, I think there are more people playing Pokemon Go than in Twitter, right? That was the note. And you can see how the behavior is changing, right? How Michigan police is getting these statements about not playing Pokemon while driving because it's actually hitting the numbers. And Cody mentioned about describing the networking and the support system that we have here in Mexico regarding the governmental entities from the private and public associations and from the independent companies like us. And I think The information is already outside there. You know, this magic white search bar that you can look for everything you want, it's already there. And I think it's more just to get organized and to have like a specific goal or achievement. As you can see in the report, I don't know if many of you have read the report, yeah, the kind of jobs and the economy around the jobs that are generating through mobility and through mobile application, it's growing and it will still growing. But the development effort and the team and the whole ecosystem that you need in order to be sustainable, that is a challenge that we are facing. And I think we need to have this philosophy of accepting these failures and to start getting to these failures fast. And I'm not talking about achieving failing, but in order to growth, you need to understand from your failures. Sorry, I was supposed to have visuals for this. But this is something that we're mentioning us a lot. We are developing our own ideas in the studio, and we question ourselves, where is the ROI? You know, where is the business model? Actually, if it's a good investment or not. Okay, we love games, we want to invest in a new game. You can see the top charts, the top grossing charts, and they haven't moved in about a year. So how difficult it is for an indie development company like us to actually get something really, really good or really unique in order to make that movement. So we understand that we need to invest a lot in planning, and the value of the ideas, it's the way how they are executed. It's not just to have the idea. This is about the failing, that we need to fail forward in order to continue to develop great things. I think as a local company, we haven't have the success we are achieving. Of course, we have worldwide products. Of course, in 12 clicks, you can be actually in China. Yeah, there are guys in China actually playing Sky Hero, and they don't know that they are playing with Juan Escutia. And what's next? You know, how you can develop this sustainable economy for a longer term. How we can showcase these success stories to public entities in order to support and to collaborate more with educational entities and to grow this talent, this local talent. So, yeah, just to close this quick talk, we're really glad to be part of this kind of growing process. We don't know the future of our company. You know, we have, of course, this plan for 5 years, and we have a sustainable business model. But we don't know if this unicorn product will get us in 6 months or in 3 years. And we know that it's part of a trying out process. And as soon as we have our products in the market, and as soon as we validate them with real users, are closer to achieve that goal. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry about the presentation. It's like it's continuous, so it doesn't move like each slide. And next, we like to invite the doctor to present the results of the study. That all we are here for that. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Glad to have you all here. And first, I want to say a wonderful thanks to Startup Mexico, who have been a great partner for us in putting this event together and helping make our trip to Mexico really fruitful. My involvement with talking about the tech economy goes back to the mid-90s, when the new economy in the US was first starting. At that point, there was an enormous amount of skepticism about whether or not technology actually had an important role to play in creating jobs. So people thought at that point that we're very skeptical in the US that technology could actually be a force for employment, because people thought about manufacturing, they thought about healthcare, they thought about construction. They didn't think about technology as a force for growth. Of course, in the US at that point, we had an enormous number of tech jobs created in the second half of the 1990s. There was a pause, then it picked up again, but it really started accelerating in 2007 when Apple released the iPhone. All of a sudden, even though the rest of the US economy was slowing because of the Great Recession, technology jobs kept rising because the iPhone triggered off really the smartphone revolution. The number of smartphones that was being sold was incredible. Then you had the opening of the App Store in 2008, which all of a sudden people could easily write mobile applications that could be distributed to everybody almost immediately, not just in the US, but around the world. And suddenly, we had an enormous number of jobs being created in the United States in the tech area that nobody expected, even though the rest of the economy was tanking. So think about it. In 2008, 2009, well into 2009, the US economy and the rest of the developed countries were going like this. Technology jobs were going like this. And the core of the tech growth was mobile. The core of the tech workers were mobile. So what happened was in 2011, 2012, I decided to try to figure out how many people in the US were working on apps. And I came up with a methodology for doing this. And at that point, it was roughly the number of app economy workers in the US, this was 2012, was roughly about 450,000. It got an enormous amount of play at that point in the press in the US. So I did it again the next year and got about 30% growth in app economy jobs. I did it again a year later. I was still getting 30% growth. And then I said, this can't continue. So I stopped looking. Then a few years later, I came back and I did another analysis of the number of app economy jobs in the US. And it turned out that this 30% per year growth had continued. This was, the app economy was the fastest growing part of the US economy in terms of jobs. And once you thought about it, it was a natural, because not only was everybody buying smartphones, but they were populating their smartphones with apps. Some of them were game apps. Some of them were social network apps. Some of them were apps for banks, for airlines, for retail stores, for Starbucks, for almost every type of app that you can imagine, for every type of company. And this just continued. And so what it turned out was that when you look in the US, we continue to see 30% per year growth in app economy jobs. So we decided at PPI to look globally, to look at what was happening to app economy jobs, not just in the US, but in Europe, in Asia, and Latin America. And what we found was that in these countries were being transformed by the mobile economy as well, which makes perfect sense. Because if we think about the last decade, you think about the important innovations, the thing that jumps to your mind right away is the smartphone. Adopted at rapid pace, both in developed countries and around the world, something that people, when they can afford it, they bought it. And so here we are in Mexico, and what we did was we took a look at the number of app economy jobs that Mexico has. And what do I mean by an app economy job? It's people who write apps, maintain apps, support apps from on the help desk, jobs that require you to know iOS or Android or Windows Mobile or Windows Phone, even though it's a very small share. Jobs that would not exist in their current form without the mobile economy, without the smartphone, without the app stores. And what did we find in Mexico when we went and looked? We found roughly 225,000 app economy jobs. Now, this includes a conservative estimate of spillovers, that is, jobs that are sort of generated because of app economy jobs. So in the previous speaker's company, I'm sure there's some people there who are not actually app developers, maybe doing accounting or marketing or human resources. And these are jobs that are being supported by the app economy as well. What we have here is a very, very interesting phenomenon. Because when we ask ourselves, where are the new jobs going to come from in the future in a country like Mexico? What are the sources of growth? Is it going to be manufacturing, or is it going to be the sort of jobs that are app developer type jobs, which don't require a lot of investment in heavy industry, that require some education? As the previous speaker said, some of the people that work for him don't have a high school education, but require skills that can be used in a variety of situations, and what's more, can be exported. And you look around the world and you see that in a country like the US has created far more app developer jobs while manufacturing has been shrinking. And this is the same as in Mexico. And not just Mexico, but other countries as well. Argentina, Vietnam, Australia, the UK. Mobile and the sorts of jobs that are propelled by mobile are the wave of the future. Let me say just a moment about what I see coming in the future in terms of technology. We're on the verge globally of the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things means that technology is going to start pervading not just the areas where it's been so far, but it's going to start pervading manufacturing, transportation, where it started already with Uber, construction, retail, hotels, healthcare. And every time that you need to you would do this expansion of technology to a new industry, do you know how people are going to interact with it? They're going to interact with their smartphones. And when they interact with their smartphones, they need apps. So apps are really the front door to the Internet of Things, and they're going to continue to grow. We see no sign of stopping in the US, and we see no reason why it would be stopping in Mexico. Now, we don't actually know what the growth rate of apps economy jobs are in Mexico right now. We'll know in about a year when we redo the study again. But we think this is an area where Mexico has a lot of potential. In the study, we sort of talk about, the study is 90% analysis and 10% policy suggestions. We don't lay a heavy role on policy suggestions in this piece because it's not really our place. But we think that Mexico has an enormous amount of potential in terms of app development, in terms of growth, in terms of this being a potent source for exports. And it's something that local and federal officials need to look at. Let me just say one word about this, because we're in this wonderful space, and these sorts of spaces are really important. What we've seen in New York and London over the last 10 years is the growth of tech hubs in these very large, dense cities that nobody expected. Remember, New York and London were supposed to be underwater after the financial crash because they were finance-dependent cities. But what happened instead was there was an enormous surge of tech in both these cities, enough to keep them growing at a rapid pace. The key there is two elements. One element is density, which Mexico City has, and another element is government officials who were smart enough to identify a portion of the city as being the tech hub. Because for tech, it's actually important to cluster. It's important to get a critical mass. It's important for people to know that there's other people doing similar things. So something simple and low cost that authorities could do is designate an area like this one or another area as being the place to go. Because all of a sudden then a lot of groups that may not know each other will be sort of able to move closer together and feed off each other. Density is a plus. It's harder to create tech hubs in areas that are not dense. This is one place that Mexico City excels. Let me just say one word about PPI before I conclude here. PPI is a think tank based in DC. We do growth and innovation. What we care about is we want to see countries around the world grow, tackle their problems, get on the technology wave that's going to enable them to make living standards better for everyone. And this path through mobile is one way that it could happen. I'm really honored to be here this morning talking about this, and I hope that in some way that our research here can be helpful. And if anybody wants to talk about this more, either now or afterwards, please don't hesitate to contact us by phone, by email, by app. Well, we don't have an app, okay? Not yet, okay? But we're very open to constructive discussions of any sort. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Michael Mandel from PPI. PPI stands for Progressive Policy Institute. So it's a think tank in Washington, D.C. that tries to put the trending topics on the tables of the politicians, not only in Washington, now in Mexico as well. So thank you. If you want to take a seat, I want to invite Nadim Natuk to the stage to have like a quick Q&A session. And it's interesting. I don't know, do you prefer that we take the whole discussion in English or in Spanish? English? Raise your hand. Spanish? Okay, because, yeah, please sit here. It's really interesting. We at Startup Mexico works with a lot of initiative, and I was telling yesterday in a meeting about this initiative that is called Laboratoria. I don't know if you have heard it. Everybody have heard about Laboratoria? No? Laboratoria is this startup that is teaching women to program, to code. You know, it started in Peru and it's here in Mexico. And the founder just recently in the Global Entrepreneurship Summit had the chance to share the same stage that President Obama and Mark Zuckerberg. So more, and what I believe is more than because it's a good thing or a cool thing helping women to code. It's more about, you know, and to make a stand, you know, about where the world is going. So in Mexico, there's a lot of initiatives. Fundación Televisa is going to launch a program to I don't know, to train 1 million programmers in the next couple of years. That's their goal. So what can we, does that say something about, you know, the app economy, where Mexico is going specifically?
Every country has problems getting enough technical talent. Every country, whether it's the US, whether it's the UK, whether it's Japan, whether it's Mexico, everybody has. Everybody also has a gender imbalance in the tech sector. And these two things are connected to each other because people still don't see tech as an important source of employment. And one of the reasons why we've done this study in different countries is to actually say, these are jobs, these are being created, and these are going to continue growing for the future. So there's two things that need to go on. One is training new people, but also assuring them that this is the path to growth, and that yes, they are getting skills that are going to be helpful to them in the future. Because, you know, what we see in the US is that a lot of people, especially women, actually choose to go into healthcare. They choose to go into, the scientifically inclined women choose to go into healthcare because it looks like a better bet. And technology looks very risky. So one of the things that we have to assure people, men and women, that these jobs are going to be here for the future and they're going to keep growing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was remembering the numbers and the data. I think only less than 2% of the technology jobs are occupied by women. And yeah, I have heard a lot of startups. I have a friend that owns a startup that it's called Epic Queen, and they are helping little girls, and they make code parties in order to empower them to pick this kind of choices that, yeah, working in tech, it's for everyone. And I completely agree on that kind of strategy. I think the demand that you need in order to fill the supply chain and in order to have a sustainable, ecosystem, we all are in need for hands and for talent. And I think it's not a short-term kind of deal. It needs to be, educated. It needs to be involved. It needs to be trained. So I think it's part of the evolution. Many of our clients, and also it's a cultural behavior. Many of our clients, they think that developing an app is just like they just finished their job when they publish their app, and their job is just beginning when they are actually putting the app in with the users. And it's like a traditional store. You need to clean it daily. You need to, arrange all the materials like in the little abarroteria. It's the same example. You need to take care of your own business. And if it's a digital business, you need to have a digital team that supports you. So yeah, I think it's needed.
We have a mic. If somebody has a question, we can open the mic about. You can ask in Spanish. Don't worry, I can translate. But it's interesting because also, there are jobs being created, but you mentioned 30% of the jobs being created, right? 30% growth of the jobs each year, since 2007. So it's crazy. Okay.
Hello. Can you repeat the numbers about growing of developers in Mexico? And also, where can we find can we find the full document or results of your investigation?
The whole report, is there copies of the report available? Here, where are the report available?
This is the full.
So where's the report sitting at this point?
There are copies of the report by the front door. They might have run out. I don't think so, though. There should be some on the front door, so I'll grab you one. And if not, it's on our website, the full report, where we have the methodology included in the report. And as for the findings, the number,
The number is roughly 225,000 for Mexico of app economy jobs. Now, these include some spillover jobs too, so the number of developers is smaller. And when we talk about app economy jobs, it's the people who are developing the apps, the people who are maintaining them. As you said, if you think about a bank that puts out an app, that app has to be maintained and kept safe and kept secure and updated very regularly. It also counts people who are on help desks, helping people with their apps. And so it includes any job that is supported by, that is being supported by mobile apps. This is something which is growing. We don't know yet how fast it's growing in Mexico. We know how fast it's growing in the US. But when we redo this study next year, we'll be able to sort of assess the growth rate.
Okay, I've got two questions. One is, in this count, are you also including folks working in the telecommunications industry that make these apps available? Because
it includes anybody in the telecommunications industry who has knowledge of iOS or Android. So I'm not counting everybody in telecom, but there are, I'm sure, included in this count, people who, as part of their job, are either developing apps or who are interfacing with app developers.
So distributing, say for example, in the case of Telcel, América Móvil, they've got a section that has to do with value-added products or services.
Yes, then that's true. The value-added products and services which have apps connected to them would be in there. However, the engineers who are sort of just purely devoted to maintaining the network are not in there.
Okay.
Because they don't need to have knowledge of iOS or Android. Now, interestingly enough, in a lot of, if you think about what telecoms do these days, is they have to approve devices, and part of that device approval process requires them to sort of understand how the devices work, and so those people are in there. But what we're doing is we're looking at WAN ads, and we're looking at WAN ads that require iOS or Android knowledge. And so it doesn't matter whether it's in the telecom sector or some other sector, that's what we're picking those up. You had a second question?
Yes, and the second one, I mean, both of these are pretty much related to the previous person speaking, but I'm interested in knowing what is going to be the effort or the strategy in order to disseminate this information, which seems very interesting. I haven't had a chance to read it. What are you going to do?
Well,
what's the plan?
we've been meeting this week with a lot of groups, including people in government, and talking to them about these results. And I'm going to sort of talk about a bigger question here. We do a lot of travel around the world, going to different countries, and one of the things that we've learned is that we don't force things on other countries. That's not really our place. We go and we talk and we listen and we have ongoing discussions, and part of the ongoing discussions is some of this material like this, and as we understand more, we are able to have more accurate policy prescriptions. So for example, in Mexico, one of the things that we've actually learned more about is how where the new network is coming from, the new wholesale network, okay, and what effect that might have on the ability to of the app economy. So for us at this point, this is part of a conversation, an ongoing conversation, rather than a single event.
You just mentioned one particular point about the government. What's the role of the government in promoting the app economy, and also, you know, all the players that are here, you know, big companies, startups, initiatives. How can we make the app economy be sustainable, as Nadim mentioned, and what's the role of the government for that?
Well, partly it's about the government doing what it's already doing, which is the ongoing process of telecom reform, and making the networks faster and more pervasive. Then there's the question of reducing the amount of regulation and making it easier to start new companies, which you could speak to better than I could. So it's no different. And then there's the low-cost but politically complicated idea of how do you reinforce the idea that Mexico could be a tech hub? How do you say that this is something that can be a potent force for growth? And this, it's not just in Mexico, but everywhere. It's hard for governments to actually make that sort of statement, even if it's true, because it steps on the toes of a lot of other industries. But I think almost the easiest and best thing to do is actually to publicize some of the successes of companies like yours, because if you publicize the successes, what happens is that other people want to do the same thing. Because if you have the success stories, people know that this is something that they can strive for. If you don't have the success stories, then people don't know that it's possible. You want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think it's very local. And lowly? No, I don't think it's lowly. Actually, we have had the chance to work with local federal governments to build actually apps that enables communication with, with the government and the. Have you heard about Bacha 24? It was really crowded and it's really bad rated. The technology works. We don't know if the public policy works, but that's a tryout. They are trying to use technology to enable communication and to democratize these kind of processes. And I think it's part, of course, innovation is happening faster than laws. We can see this behavior on the fintech industry, where all these, I believe there are more like 240 or 70 fintech initiatives, and the laws are going way slower than technology can enable accounts and transfers, etc., etc. So it will happen. It happens all the time. But I do agree with Michael about being an entrepreneur. It's kind of we are in the spotlight right now, but it has been happening all the time. But in order to open a business in Mexico, the regulations are really slow, and I believe I read that the regulations are changing in order to have like 1 day business, a business paper already signed, and you don't need 2 members. In Mexico you can have a single company with a single entity. You need to partner with other ones. So I think, yeah, there's still a friction, but that is not a blocker. I think if you want to do things, you can do it. And I agree that government it's making an effort on their own way.
There's another question here. Okay.
for Dr. Mendel, how were you able to measure the number of jobs created by the app sector? Together at AMIPSI, we are right now trying to conduct a study regarding e-commerce. The thing in Mexico is that no one knows the size
Yes.
of e-commerce in Mexico.
Yes.
How many jobs it creates, the proportion on the gross domestic product of e-commerce. Not only the industry, the government doesn't know, don't have the figures.
Yes.
So it's interesting to know how were you able to measure
Sure,
this.
let me give you a quick description, but the methodology is described in the paper. What we do is we look at online want ads. Online want ads. Now, and we start by looking at online want ads for all technology jobs and compare that to the number of tech jobs in Mexico. That gives us a ratio between want ads and jobs. Then we look at the want ads for app economy jobs, which are basically the ads that say that they require knowledge of iOS or Android or both. And we use the ratio that we developed in the first step to provide an estimate of the number of jobs that are app economy jobs. So this is an indirect procedure that uses big data that never existed before. And so we can get an estimate. This estimate tends to be, even though it bounces around a bit, tends to be stable over time. And so it gives us an idea of the magnitude of the number of jobs. Now, it would actually be harder to count e-commerce jobs because e-commerce jobs don't have such a nice tag to them. I can't tell a job working in a bank from a job working in an e-commerce firm using this methodology, so it applies to some things but not to others. I could ask the question of how many workers in Mexico are working with big data, because then what I would do is I would look for keywords such as Hadoop or something else that were big data related. So this is a technique that uses information that was never available before, that is online want ads. It works for every country, and it gives us an estimate. Is it an exact estimate? It's not like counting, sort of like looking for clues and adding them up in a smart way. It's applicable to some types of jobs, but not to others. So take a look at the methodology as it's described. I'd be very happy to answer questions about it, how we got these numbers. And I'd be very happy to sort of talk about how it could be extended to other types of jobs in Mexico as well. Oh, there's a question back there.
Thanks. Federico Hernandez. I'm from the Ministry of Science and Technology of Mexico City. I would love to make my point in Spanish because it's for Mexicans. En la Secretaría de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación acaba de pasar la convocatoria de apoyos para este año. Para cada proyecto se les estaban asignando 15 millones de pesos como tope máximo. De los 400 y cacho proyectos que entraron, solamente 3 fueron participaciones a través de aplicaciones, de los cuales una era hacer un Internet de las cosas en los medidores de agua para verificar si tenía fugas. Otro fue un reciclaje de una idea que ya existe en el Metrobús para ver qué camión va a llegar de qué lado. Y la tercera era un chiste. De las 470 participaciones, solo 3 aplicaciones. Estamos hablando del gobierno, existen los apoyos, pero me encantaría que para el siguiente año, en la convocatoria que se abra dentro de la Secretaría, Startup esté ahí presente con 15, 20 proyectos. Y no solo Startup, Campus Party, la compañía o las propias empresas que independientemente.
Sí. 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 Sí, 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 sí. Sí, 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 sí. Sí, uno, dos, sí. Sí, 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 sí. Sí, uno, dos. Ahí está. Perfecto. Sí, uno, dos. Sí. Sí, uno, dos. Sí. Sí, uno, dos. Sí, 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 sí. Probando. Sí. Se metieron ahí. ¿Por qué se metieron ahí? Sí. Sí, uno, dos. Sí. Sí, uno, dos. Sí, 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 sí. Probando.
Es que en una